The will to live allows people to do things that they had never believed to be possible. They will not only surprise all others around them, but often they will surprise themselves, as the actions they complete are often unfathomable. The majority of people who have not been in life and death situations have no idea of their limits, of what they are actually capable of. The Life of Pi by Yann Martel is centered around the protagonist, Pi Patel, and his struggle to survive through extremely difficult situations, and the ways in which he coped, both mentally and physically. Yann Martel uses characters and plot to emphasize this theme, as well as an array of literary devices. The use of characters, plot, and literary devices prove that the theme, the will to live, is very powerful and allows us to complete actions that we had never previously thought possible. So the most evident and obvious part of the book that emphasizes the will to live is the plot. The beginning of the book is often very ironic and uses a bit of foreshadowing, as Pi is named after a swimming pool and taught to swim by his father's friend. This is ironic because Pi effectively lives in a gigantic swimming pool for 277 days. It is also ironic that the tiger that he has known since he was a child should be his greatest foe whilst at sea. However, the majority of the plot is about Pi being thrown off of a sinking ship into a lifeboat, and his struggle to survive for 277 days with a tiger, a hyena, and a zebra on board. As well as these deadly animals, Pi has never been at sea before, and so has no experience and no idea what to do. The worst part of his condition is the fact that he is a vegetarian, so he cannot eat any fish that he may catch. Over time, we see how Pi adapts as he changes both physically and mentally. His physical condition fluctuates depending on the abundance of resources, and he gets stronger and better at catching fish and turtles. However, it is his mental changes that he goes through that really astounded me the most. Pi goes from being a vegetarian to not only eating fish and turtles, but he also eats human flesh, becoming a cannibal. As Pi's father says at the beginning of the book, all creatures will do anything they can to survive, and humans are no exceptions. An example of this is the story that Pi visualizes in order to do the things that he has to do to survive. And this is his only way of rationalizing his actions, to allow him to survive. The human brain is so powerful, it is said to have more neurons than there are stars in our galaxy. And it allows Pi to effectively hallucinate for 3/4 of a year so that he can survive this ordeal. The thing that keeps Pi alive is his faith, his religion, as it allows him to keep a routine. It is often said that routine is key in this sort of situation, otherwise you'll go crazy from the isolation. Overall, the plot is used very well to show that the will to live and how powerful it can be when you're in a life or death situation. There are two main characters who display the will to live. The first character I will talk about is the zebra that is originally on the lifeboat. The zebra jumps onto the lifeboat, and when it lands, it breaks its leg. After this, the hyena rips the zebra's leg off and eats it, and finally the hyena begins to eat the zebra's body. And yet through all of this, the zebra survives. It had its leg broken, then ripped off, before watching it being eaten, and then lies there whilst the hyena eats its internal organs. And it still survives. The zebra does eventually die, but Pi in the book, as well as myself reading the book, was shocked that the zebra had managed to survive for so long. The second and most obvious character who displays the will to live clearly is Pi. As the protagonist, the entire story is about him and his struggle to survive. At the beginning of the book, a flying fish jumped into the lifeboat, and Pi knew that he had to kill it and use it for bait. However, he could not bear to stab it, and so he put a cover over the fish and snapped its neck, and cried whilst doing it. This was at the beginning of his time on the boat, when resources were plentiful and he was not in a life or death situation. Comparing this to Pi ruthlessly and expertly cutting out fish for food and bait, as well as dragging turtles over the side of the boat, shows the huge change he undergoes due to his will to live. The character development that occurs in this book is the most dramatic that I have ever read. as I cannot recall a single book where a character has changed so much so quickly. And this change can be attributed entirely to two things: the will to live and the fact that we can get used to anything, even killing. This is a quote from Pi after he kills the flying fish, and how true it turns out to be. Once again, the characters are used very well to demonstrate the will to live, not only because of the character's actions, but also the character development. Finally, literary devices were used extremely well to show the will to live. The first and most important literary device was the allegory, as it ran almost the entire length of the book. As we find out at the end of the book, there were no tigers, hyenas, or zebras on the boat, but this was just Pi's way of rationalizing what it was that he was doing. He did some unbelievable things that he cannot face remembering, and this was his mind's solution. Thus, the animals were merely representations of humans, and Pi was the tiger. This allegory, combined with the realization at the end of the book that the animals were people, shows us just how powerful the will to live is, as the mind hallucinated so Pi could survive. Secondly, there is a strong allusion to Noah's Ark, as in both stories a person is on a boat with animals and is also asking God for help. This demonstrates how powerful faith can be in a life or death situation, as it makes us stronger and spurs our will to live. Moreover, to make the story seem realistic, he uses a lot of imagery to validate his story so that we do not suspect that he's making the whole thing up, right until the very end in the interview room. All in all, imagery was used very effectively to validate the allegory, which is an allusion to Noah's Ark. All of these literary devices help to demonstrate just how powerful the will to live really is. To summarize, the will to live is extremely powerful, and it is our only coping mechanism when we are put in life and death situations. The will to live is one of the most important themes in the life of Pi, and is developed by the use of characters, plot, and literary devices. These three elements of the story work in tandem to demonstrate just how powerful the will to live is, and just what we can accomplish when there are no other alternatives.